Hello everyone! Today I have a Pan That Palette update. Yes, it is that time already. I can't believe it. I feel like I just did my intro on this palette, but I have quite a bit of progress to talk to you guys about. If you guys saw my Project PanPorn last year, you will have had a little taste of how easy it was for me to hit pan on these eyeshadows, and this year is no different. And it's a nice change. I really love how soft these eyeshadows are in terms of panning progress. It just makes me feel so successful. So it's really rewarding and makes you just want to keep working harder. So this is what my palette looked like at my intro. And you'll see that I had a lot of pan on this palette already. I had a really good head start with this palette. And this is what my palette looks like right now. You can see I've hit pan on 3 more shadows. I'm so excited. There's only 4 shadows that I have not hit pan on yet, and I'm definitely making that my goal. But anyway, the other shadows I've hit pan on, so not including the ones that I had hit pan on previously, are Kim, Muse, and Bronx. So Muse and Bronx I actually hit pan on within the last couple of days, and I'll tell you guys my story there. So Kim is the shadow that I really focused on first. When I did my intro, I saw how much of a dip I had on that palette, and I thought, you know what, I can really make this work for me. Kim is an orangey gold shade, so I really played up those warm tones a lot. I reached for orange shadows, things that were very warm. I'm using the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette as a supplementary palette. It's part of my Project PanPorn. So I pulled a lot of those warm shades in there, the orange and the red. So I really just embraced it. My everyday eyeshadow shapes and styles are very basic, as I've talked about quite a few times. I did take a few photos for like Snapchat, but honestly, it's really hard for me to take photos at work without looking kind of ridiculous. I don't work alone, I don't have an office, so trying to like take a selfie when I remember to do it is kind of awkward, and I've done the bathroom selfies from time to time, but it's just awkward. I'm really bad at taking these kind of photos because I'm just not home a lot. I don't have access to good lighting or my camera or stuff like most of the day. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to deal with my descriptions, but fortunately the shapes and styles are very simple. So with Kim, it was just that shadow on the lid with other shadows in the crease, and depending on my mood would depend on how blown out it was. Sometimes I would have it very contained, meaning that I would have Kim on the lid and then just a little bit of like an orange or a red, some sort of warm shadow in the crease, and not bring it up too high or bring it out too much. But if I was in a mood, I'd make it a little bit more dramatic and bring the crease shade up further closer to my eyebrow and bring it out a little bit as well, and then really smoke it out more in my lower lash line, depending on how I was feeling. Most of the times I don't go super intense with the lower lash line, but sometimes I just feel like it. I don't really go too crazy with my work makeup because I don't have the time. So that's basically how I was using Kim and how I hit pan on it. Now, just a couple of days ago, I decided to use this palette for a palette resurrection video where I recreated a very editorial look, and it was so much fun. During that video, I mentioned to you guys how I could see a tiny speck of pan on Muse. And in that video, if you watch very closely, you can see that tiny, tiny little speck, that itty bitty baby pan. And that was on Muse. I can't remember if I said it already, the reddish shimmer shade. So the very next day, so I filmed my palette resurrection video on a Sunday. The next day, Monday, I decided to wear that shadow. I said, okay, I'm gonna really work that shadow to see if I can hit pan on it, and I did. It took no effort at all to really expand that pan quite a bit. So I just sprayed a little Fix Plus into the pan because that's what I prefer. I get a lot of people who say like not to do that because it will ruin the shadow, just to spray your brush and then put your brush into the shadow, but like it's the same thing. I find that if I spray my brush and then put my brush into the shadow, I get too much shadow on one section of the brush. Whereas if I spray a tiny bit, and I'm not like spraying the palette like I would spray my face, I'm really just almost dropping a couple of drops of Fix Plus into my palette, into the shadow that I want, and then I pick up product. And to me, there's no difference between having a wet brush going into a shadow and having a couple of drops of liquid in there. Like, it just seems like it's the same thing, and I just find that personally it works better for me that way. So that's the way I'm going to keep doing it. So that's what I did with Muse. I had a little Fix Plus there, flat shadow brush, and just went all over my lid, and I blended it out a little bit with just a neutral shadow, one from the Kylie Cosmetics palette. I can't remember the exact name of it. I've been going back and forth between the Desert Dusk palette, which I mentioned earlier, and the Kylie Cosmetics Holiday palette, in case you guys don't know, from my Project PanPorn. So those are the palettes I'm referencing. You can always go check out my 2018 Project PanPorn intro if you want to get a little more information on that. So that's how I used Muse to hit pan on it between my video and that look, and that's really generally how I would use Muse. I really like to make it grungy instead of very pretty. You can do very gorgeous, soft, smoky looks with a lot of these shadows, but Muse for me definitely pulls more red, so I just embrace the full modern grunge effect and really just like rim my eyes, and just, I like it personally because things like oranges, reds, pinks, they really work well at emphasizing blue eyes. And I find that if I use some sort of a red shadow when I'm kind of tired, it works for the whole effect. And I feel like a lot of people leave me alone. Don't mess with me when I have a little bit of red eyeshadow on. And then I've just been pairing most of my looks with brown lip liner and lip gloss. I'm panning one in my Back to Mac Project Pan, and I have a couple in my purse that I just rotate around, so it's fun. I've been in a more lip gloss mood, and I find that it really balances out with a lot of these shimmers on my eye. And the last shadow that I hit pan on, I actually hit pan on it today. And today, when I'm filming this, is Tuesday. The shadow Bronx, so I decided to use that shadow today. I did a very simple look. It's very close to what I decided to put back on my face for filming. This is a more amped up version, of course. When I film, I like to throw on all the bells and whistles, so that's why I added some glitter and some false eyelashes. But in general, this is one of the shapes that I do where I just drag the shadow out a little bit. I either do a really sharp edge with tape, I either blow it out a little bit so the shadow drags off a little bit towards the side of my face, or I just go for a really round eye. That tends to be the 3 variations of shadow shapes that I do on the daily because it's very, very quick. And I wanted to do a variation of that to show you guys, because I always like to show you some sort of example if I can. And this is it. I only used 3 eyeshadows. I used Bronx all over the lid. I used a mustard shadow in the crease, and I used the green highlighter shade from the Kat Von D Alchemist palette on my inner corner. That's all I did. And I used a green eyeliner on my lower lash line because I wanted a little bit more intensity, and then I just put Bronx on top of the eyeliner. Really very simple. Like, I don't tend to go too complicated with this palette because I find that the way that this formula is, the more complicated you try to go, the messier it looks. And I don't mean messy in an intentionally messy way, but messy in a you don't really know what you're doing kind of way. Like, things just look awful if you put too many things together. Just the way that this formula is. That's from my experience so far. That could change. I might end up doing some crazy dramatic weird things with this, I don't know, but I don't think that's what this palette was intended for anyway. It definitely has a more laid back vibe to me anyway. So Kim, Muse, and Bronx, 3 shadows I've hit pan on. I'm very happy. I feel very good about this palette choice. There was quite a few people who doubted me for one reason or another, whether or not they just thought I should pan something else, or they just didn't think I should pan this because it's limited edition, or whatever the reason was, but I feel really good about this. I definitely, just based on my progress for this first month, I definitely think that I can finish this palette before the year is up. And I'm really excited about that because I've never actually finished a palette in 1 calendar year. It's always taken me a little tiny bit extra. So I'm definitely gonna make this my priority this year. Instead of hitting pan on all these shadows, I just wanna finish this. But I think I'm headed in a very good direction, and I think that it's very, very doable. I feel like it's a very realistic goal. I don't feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment here. So my goal is going to be to hit pan on NYC and Claudia, the blue shade, and the reddish brown shade, those 2 shimmers. That's gonna be my goal. I do want to hit pan on Lula and Violetta as well. I have this weird idea in mind of hitting pan on all of the shadows before I finish any. We'll see if that happens. I'm not gonna hold myself to it, but that's what I'm gonna try for, play around with some of those other shadows, and then just work on expanding pan. and I'm really excited. I'm really excited. I have struggled a little bit with some of my panning projects in the past and with my Pan That palettes, because sometimes it's just a challenge that just will not end, and sometimes you get frustrated with it. But right now, I mean, it's the honeymoon period, and I'm just gonna ride that feeling as much as I possibly can. I'm just having a good time with it this year. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and I will do my best to answer you as soon as I possibly can. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me today, and I hope we get a chance to talk soon. Bye for now.